What's up, Mountain Movers? Welcome back to the 1720 podcast. Old Stewie gave me some homework for this week's episode that included listening back to episode 1. And when you get through the nightmare of the and the choppiness and the robotics of it all, I was actually surprised to hear some of the things we laid out from the very beginning.
When I was listening back yesterday, well, first of all, that's 2 out of the last 3 weeks that I've had a plan.
Yeah. Let's note that.
Yeah, noted.
That's a bingo tile.
Mark that. But when the homework was go listen back to it, I wondered how many times you would throw up in your truck listening back to it, because you've said 300 times when it auto loops back to the first one, you can't take it.
No. Yeah. It was tough homework, but I understood the mission this time.
Yeah.
But I was tracking how many I said versus how many times you said notion, and I ran out of ink with my pen.
I said notion?
Yeah. Which I don't think you've said again.
No, I don't think I said. When I was listening back, I did notice that I would hit these. You could tell I hit these skid points where I didn't really know what to say.
Yeah.
And so I just hot mic lawyer talked over it until we got to a point where we could pick up and start going again. At least twice, maybe 3 times that happened. I was just like, that's just me rambling.
Yeah, and we're our own worst critic, but there's definitely a reason why the homework assignment was assigned. So tee it up.
Yeah, so we went back and listened as homework to the first episode because, we're almost 150 episodes in here. And it's not like the podcast or the format has become stale or the stories become old, because every time someone's sitting, well, you guys can't see, but Kevin's in the guest seat today. But every time someone's sitting in Kevin's seat, it's an amazing story, right? I have no doubt that we're influencing people, we're presenting all that stuff. But I just wanted to go back and listen to what we set out to do and have a chance to reflect on how have we done so far, sort of in advancement, we'll get to in a second, of not diverting or leaving the format or changing the way we're doing it. But I would like to say perhaps adding something new to it. I don't know. Is that accurate? You think that's a fair way to say?
Yeah. I mean, I think it felt like, let's listen to this thing and figure out how bad we got it, right? Like how wrong were we in this mix? And what I found out listening through it was, we had this thing pretty nailed full circle of the purpose, and I forgot that we mentioned about the personal impact. Like we want these stories, we're the student before the teacher, all that sort of stuff. And then you were talking about building up the community, where as we went through these episodes, we thought that was ancillary benefit that we never saw coming.
Right.
We would talk about that in future episodes.
Right.
Never saw this coming, like maybe the 100th episode or something.
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Well, we
just forgot about it.
We just forgot we talked about it. Yeah. I will tell you, and again, at the risk of being a shill, Matt, that's for you. Shill.
Not a typo.
Not a typo. When you were talking about how you had some hopes that you'll be able to grow and change and leverage forward what we were doing, dude, if you didn't think about it, I definitely thought about your journey, like coming through the book writing process and taking all those things and packaging all the things you've been working on and learning. I heard that in there. So when there were those moments of us talking through the personal growth part that you were talking about, I was like, man, those were sort of prophetic words around what would eventually turn into you jumping out onto your mountain mover army journey. I don't know if you heard it the same way as I did.
Well, the cool thing, the part that you don't know, the timeliness of this discussion and the season that we're in. I was on Bradley Hartman's podcast earlier today recording, and he mentioned 2 snippets of the book where he opened it up and read it back to me.
Oh.
And one of them was the stepping out of your comfort zone to start 1720 and flipping a weakness into a strength.
Yeah.
So it was the second time today I was able to reflect on that and how it tees it up, because now 140 episodes in, I didn't have a prep sheet with Bradley for his episode, nor did I actually want one, because if I would have got one, then in my busy schedule, I would have had to fit that in somehow, and then I'm additional stress. Now I could just show up and naturally talk, because that dynamic of putting the microphone and the headphones on, even if you're chatting with your best bud, man, it changes the dynamic of things, and it takes some getting used to.
Yeah.
More so for me than you. You were very quickly natural at it. But yes, it did improve things, which has led to workshops, one-on-one coaching, public speaking. And I didn't know I would actually get those opportunities. I just wanted it as an improvement from a leader.
Yeah.
Like I want to be able to get in front of a crowd, whether it's a GC interview on a project or a new hire orientation or whatever the case may be, and just be crisp.
Yeah.
But now I'm actually doing it to get paid for it, you know, as an occupation.
Yeah, it turned from a learning journey to we were figuring it out like a Toastmasters class to now having a master class to put on around all of it. So that's, I don't know how to say it without kind of sounding silly about it, but your journey of getting better at this is monumental, man. Because when I listened to the first episode, I just sound the same as I do right now. Like this microphone didn't bother me as much, and I didn't really think much about it. But dude, 10 in is a big change, 20 in is a big change, and then it's the hockey stick after that. Like you're just all about it, you know. So it's been amazing to watch.
Well, and I appreciate that, and it's a good season to reflect on that and receive that word, because now there's true public speaking happening.
Yeah,
and it's not a workshop anymore, which is it's my happy place. Unlocking somebody's potential and getting that feedback, but that's interactive.
Yeah.
Now it's a stage for an hour by myself with 300 plus eyeballs. So that's the projection for that keynote's 300 plus.
Yeah.
And I get lost in that ADD brain. And I think between that and the book that was recommended last week, When People Are Big and God Is Small.
Yeah.
This isn't a coincidence that all of this is happening together to they're rooting for you in that crowd. They're rooting for you, maybe not for you, but for them. They want to be fed.
Yeah.
And stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Like if you're aligned with a purpose that's bigger than yourself, go deliver the purpose. Don't let the mountain of fear, doubt, shame, any of that stuff get in your way. And this is a good, timely reminder. And for any listener out there, don't let that stuff get in your way. Just go. Yeah. Try it. Fail. Fall forward, as you said.
Forward. That
episode 1, you know?
That was a thing that we were talking about a lot. I can't remember if it was in, at the time we were doing a Bible study in the neighborhood. We called it Bowie Bible Study because that's where the kids were all in school at the time. Because it's been 4 years, I don't know, 3 years, whatever. We were talking a lot about it, I think there, but I hadn't thought about fall forward, that concept, that idea, until I listened back yesterday doing the homework here. So, all right. So I'm gonna. There's a couple things that jumped out at me. One of them you touched on earlier was when we listened back, like the idea of building a community. And I know we talked about it and they kind of forgot it was in there, but there's definitely a community of listeners. And I continue to be shocked at how many times I sit down at a breakfast or a lunch or a meeting or something, and they say, well, I'm not quite caught up, but I listened to, so-and-so the other day, and boy, I got a nugget out of that, this sort of stuff. And it's just, I don't even really think about it anymore. Not that I take it for granted. It's just that that those folks are out there listening for sure, which is, I think, helpful in terms of thinking through what this. I will go back to a word I was using a lot then. This pivot.
Not the notion?
No, not the notion. I didn't even recognize that. I'm going to have to listen again. The pivot, or if you will, like the little tweak we're about to make, is, I think, derivative of some community overlays. But are there any other parts of that first episode that jump out to you before I lay on that community point for a minute?
Well, no, I'll spin on a piece of the community that is, it makes me smile, is I think the community is now bigger than the podcast, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not just direct touch points with us, but the community is getting together with the community.
Yeah.
And whether or not we're involved, that's irrelevant. It's to better people's lives, and guests are reaching out to former guests, and they're scheduling lunches. People are getting hired within companies for people's services, and they're setting up peer groups, and this organism is growing well beyond the podcast, which is exactly what we want. This whole Mountain Movers company thing, my face is in it a lot, but I eventually want that shirt, the Move Your Mountain, to be way bigger than me.
Yeah.
People won't even know who's behind it. That's why you and I, over the course of these episodes, started taking our pictures out of the episodes.
Yeah.
It's about 1720.
Yeah.
We're just a vessel.
As I was listening, and this is not some accidental pretext to what's coming, but as I was listening to the first episode the other day and prepping for this crazy thought ran through my mind was, what if it stopped today? What if we turned it off right now and that was it? What would happen? And it has a little ego component to it. I'm like, oh, but then my mind quickly traversed over to this idea that I think people would keep talking about what happened and keep talking about episodes and keep talking and keep when you're meeting with someone that you're mentoring at the office or whatever, would say, you need to go back and listen to whatever. This was a good one with, whomever, and using and referring and referencing back to some of the stuff that folks have told us here in the studios. We've had the opportunity to talk with them. And so I think, to your point, that idea is similar but different to your idea of it's way bigger than me and you. If I packed all this stuff up and took it home today, I think we would be shocked at how many listens we continue to get as people review the archive and look back through the catalog and listen back and continue to learn on second and third passes through all this stuff. I would be encouraged by that.
And even if that didn't happen, still, holy cow, what a win.
What a win.
We said those things in episode 1, but we didn't understand it to the scale that we were about to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like, whoa, look at our numbers, top 5% global ranking, 80 countries. That's cool that all of that happened.
Yeah.
But this is about like the community was 100x what we thought. The caliber of guests, because we had no idea some of these people. I always reference, and you and I were joking about it a couple weeks ago, because I've been on a few that have video, and it's like, man, that seems like a mighty swing and a miss to not have Chris Cassidy on video.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
we should have figured that out.
Yeah, some of those things, but we weren't prepared for that because we never thought we'd have caliber guests like that beyond our industry. Our industry is chock full of amazing people. We didn't see being able to stretch outside of that.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't know where our listeners would show up from, and if it would be something for the industry, if it would be something for general consumption, or if it would live outside of the Metroplex or specifically in the Metroplex. But that sort of does bring me back to the idea of the community of listeners that we have, and sort of the plan for adding something new on a go-forward basis, sort of to our regular lineup, if you will. And so I'll give it a preview, and then we can chat a little bit about it. But we've lived in this. In fact, the intro, maybe we need an alt intro too, but the intro starts with everybody has a great story and the stories need to be heard. I'm paraphrasing. And we've done that. Like, people have sat in the seats and they've told us stories of coming of age, growing up, learning into leadership, all the things, right? Like, everybody's story, and we've pulled nuggets out of them, and we're not abandoning that. That stays. Like, that is, I think, at the core, like, who we are and what we're doing. But because of the community of listeners and the place and space that they live, both, in geography and the construction industry really having adopted the podcast, I think, and we can talk through it a little bit, but I think, generally speaking, the pivot or the adaptation or the add-on here is leaning into some subject matter specific topics so that we can still provide stories and be in storytelling mode. And when we have great opportunities to tell great stories, we're telling them, period. Yep. But also use and leverage not just the stories in our industry, but the industry specific expertise that exists in our circles and in our community of listeners to say, oh man, let's tackle a big industry issue. And maybe we put 2 more mics in here, or maybe we do it somehow different. We don't have it completely developed, but let's tackle, discuss, and all get better around X. Insert subject matter topic here.
Yeah, you could have topics that, who is the best at business development? Let's get them in here.
Yeah.
But then, like, through this journey of executive coaching, like, I'm able to work something out with one person and then use it for several others because everybody's struggling with it, like time and time management, time blocking, the art of saying no, prioritizing, like the slices of pie analogy, listen, advice, solve, like all of those things are topics that if one person's struggling with, most likely there's a ton of people, or if they're not struggling with it, there's at least a nugget or two where you could get better from it.
Right.
And so we could, even if we bring the topic to the table without an expert in it, but we're all unilateral in the struggle, something's going to come of it.
Yeah.
Like, just like our peer groups, we work through stuff. Like, here's what I'm struggling with. It's a set cadence. Let's put this at the table. And if it's big enough, we stop everything to work on that one thing.
Right.
And we'll come up, we might not solve it, but we'll have options.
Well, and we heighten awareness to it. One of the things that we said in the original episode, in episode 1, I guess, was something to the effect of people talking about their struggles, encourage people who are having them, because they didn't even know, they felt like they were on an island. And so I think this subject matter format will allow us to linger on some of those things a little longer, but start to tweak and work, as you say, on each other, on the industry, and sort of just open mic. What's the big thing right now? So we've as between you and I think we formulated the ask a couple different ways. One of the ways I said it earlier was just asking people, like jokingly, like, what are you on your high horse about right now? Like, what's something that you feel like you're just preaching over and over and over and over again, leadership wise, relationship wise, industry wide, whatever the case may be. What are you on your high horse about right now? Awesome. Let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
And I should be able to remember because you said it 15 minutes ago, but you said it a different way. Was it, what are you struggling with, or what's your biggest struggle, or something like that?
Yeah, or recognizing like somebody that says, I don't feel like I have the time for that. Like, okay, there's a journey you could take to make the time, because time is time, right? So how do we break down how you get that time back? It's like putting figuratively time back in your pocket. What's the path to get there? What are the tips and tricks? And of the 10 to 15 things, 2 of them might apply to you, you know? And if you could grab 2 nuggets for time management and go apply it to your business, awesome. That's been an awesome thing in this journey.
What's that?
Like sometimes in coaching and workshops especially, I'll get bummed knowing that people they're on fire when they're there.
Oh, yeah.
But they leave and they don't work on it. So I highlight that. I'm like, if you've noticed something, please put a mechanism or a next step or an action plan together to better your life. This community, the 1720, they try this stuff on for size, because we get I'm doing that. I did that. This worked. This didn't, which is awesome. So we have a bunch of action takers in this community that not only absorb this stuff, but then go teach it, go implement it, which is freaking awesome.
Yeah. And I think to come back to draw some lines through all of it, the community overlay of the listenership coupled with this additional subject matter topics, I think allows them to come together really well, because we have a list. I mean, what's the number up to? It's actually dead on 50. We have 50 topics that we've brainstormed through already to start laying in. Some of them are industry, some of them are not, whatever. But it allows us the opportunity to like hear from you guys. What is it? Like, what's the thing? What are you on your high horse about? What are you struggling with? What's the challenge that you need? And then begin to, put that as a target on the wall and say, okay, well, if what we're all sort of struggling with is X, who do we know that can talk about that? And it allows us to go find a guest, find 2 or 3 people who have done it, and put together, I don't know, maybe it's me and you, maybe it's a panel, maybe it's 5 or 6 of us, maybe we get on a Zoom and I don't know, but begin solving for what the community is listening for, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, that was straight down the fairway for all of us. We all were wrestling with that. So as we begin developing this additional format, I mean, I will say, as I say all the time, like, y'all reach out, man. If you're like, add this to the list. I don't know if it makes the air one day, but add this to the list, because we have one. We're keeping it. It's a numbered, kind of ranked list with potential guests out to the side of it as we force rank everything to start bringing this new format forward. So I don't know where I go from there. I kind of ran out of steam on that idea, but yeah, I mean, this is leaning into the community. So if you guys have ideas, you're like, that's great, I want to hear about this, hit it with us.
Yeah, and segue, the daily motivations, just because it's coming from Constant Contact, I get the replies. Like, so keep the nuggets coming on that end too. That kind of dropped significantly once I switched it to that platform.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
The interaction. I think people just equate it to, like, I'm not going to see it, or maybe it'll get hung up or something, but keep them coming. And just like
everybody would just hit reply. Whereas I am usually like, I'll text, right? Like, I see the email, then you're saying not when people are reticent now to just hit reply to that email because they don't know. Yeah,
it's a lot lower.
Interesting,
it's a lot lower. But like that's what spurs topics in future episodes. When you interact on a daily motivation or like nuggets that you got from the 1720 podcast, we naturally turn that into future episodes.
Yeah.
Like there was a daily motivation this week. Oh, Carl Jung one about the shadows, and everybody that replied took it from a parenting standpoint.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like it was like, hey, have you read this parenting book? Man, this is ringing true with my kids. Wasn't it Sean? I don't know if it was on this podcast or when I was on his, when he said, well, what walks in you runs in your children.
It was over there, but I saw you had talked, you used that quote. I didn't know where it came from on the recap this week, and I didn't know where it came from, but it wasn't on here.
Yeah. It's those touch points, and we turn those into future topics even before this kind of shift or evolution. So keep them coming.
Yeah, for sure. Well, there's no subject matter, ironically, or guest story this week. There's neither, as we talk through kind of listening back to the first episode to see like were we on point, were we on goal, how have we done as we begin to add something new to the format here. So go ahead.
I want to play, just in case you were going to wrap up, what did the episode not have in it? So I'll let you stew on it for a little bit.
What did it not have?
Yes, because it was pretty well rounded for what we set out to do purpose wise. One thing it didn't mention is fun. Dude, we had we didn't see the shticks coming. The Stewie bingos, the QZ, the 100-mile competition.
Yes.
The jokes, we don't have to be perfect like we thought we did in the first 30-ish episodes. We started leaving the ums in, like we had fun making fun of each other.
Yes. What you're saying is what was missing is in our pillars of what we're trying to accomplish. Like fun was not there, but it
was all business, man.
All business. The post I made of the pictures of us at the book party was like, that was it. Like everybody responds like, yeah, that's fun. Those guys are having fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we took it for granted that it would be fun, but the first few episodes didn't have that fun component. It was definitely like, we're very serious and we're going to be very serious with this.
It was a nightmare between my ears. There was no fun happening. What are you, nuts? I was terrified.
Yeah.
I was like, script, bullet 3, Stewart. Remember early on?
Gosh.
You'd jump because you wouldn't look at it. You'd go from 3 to 12, and I'm like, we're off the rails. We're off the rails.
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now we don't even have a prep sheet in front of us.
No. Yeah, that's better for me.
Yeah. For the listeners,
probably not.
For a first-time podcast guest, yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Here's a structure.
Yeah, let's just make sure you've thought through these things while we throw curveballs at you.
Yep. That's one thing we've learned we got to keep top of mind as we get better and more experience in this. It could be somebody's first time, and be mindful of that. If we've skipped right past the instructional and there's, boom, let's go. And this person's like,
deer in the headlights.
Yes. I don't know what I'm doing. That's our fault. That's ownership, right?
Yes.
Topic, ownership.
Yeah. All right. Stop that. We're going to take this from the top. Sorry, we went hot there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I am in wrap-up mode a little bit, so I don't know that there's anything further other than, I don't know if next week, at this juncture, I think next week is going to be programmed for a new format. We'll probably have subject matter, and we'll roll this out, and if it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. And if it's great and we get great fun and engagement from it, we'll get great fun and engagement from it. But again, as we just look back through what did we set out to do, it felt like it was time to add something new and keep working on growing and challenging and all this. So looking forward to the added addition to the journey here.
Yeah, just the only other thing I was baking on was the whole concept of bigger than us. This could end up being someday where we're not even in here and other people are tackling topics, and that stays alive.
Yeah,
right.
That's true.
I'm pointing at the logo.
Yeah.
Takes the pressure off. It gets more voices and opinions in here.
Right.
It's not about us. Just vessels.
Just a vessel. Just a microphone. Just a platform. I like that.
Yep.
I like that. Well, we will see you guys next week with our new format options here. And until we talk to you next week, y'all stay out there and keep moving mountains.